First of all, we should understand, as we have discussed during the past two sessions also, that when we are saying protocols, protocols are nothing but the set of rules. Okay, so when two networks are designed separately, for example, one network is at one location and that network has used some principles to for designing aspect, and if you talk about the another network which is located possibly geographically apart, so in that case, if you want to communicate, if you want to send the data across, so how you can send? Okay, because both the structures are different. So keeping this thing into mind, these protocols and set of rules are designed. And when we talk about the protocols at various layers, that should start with the data link layer. All right, physical layer, Ethernet, and rest of the things will come into the picture. So which we have already seen yesterday. So it's nothing so much major. But when you talk about the data link layer, so data link layer, when you talk about, the first thing comes into the picture, that is your controls. Controls that can be or that might be exercised over the data link layer. Okay, so when you are saying data link layer, so that basically provides three of the functions. Number one is the line function. So line function, if you talk about, so number one is that what is the priority of my data? Okay, who should send the data first? So to maintain the line discipline, so that everyone should get a chance to send their data across. So these things are very much essential. Okay, so for maintaining the line discipline, as we had seen that it's nothing but the end-to-end connectivity that is required to be ensured. So, and if you talk about the transmission mode, which we had already discussed, that is simplex, half duplex, and full duplex. So what we understood from this is one device should be given a chance to send the data at an instance of time. So if both the devices at the end of the links transmit the data simultaneously, then there is every possibility that a collide will happen. And if data collision happens, you will definitely lose the data, or you will definitely lose the information which you want to send. Okay, so to exercise this, various methods or functions which has been exercised. So as we are discussing the line discipline number one, so when we talk about line discipline, so it is nothing but is your functionality of data link layer that provides the coordination among linking the systems. So when the link is established, the discipline has to be maintained. Who is going to send the data, what is the priority, how the priority can be maintained, so all those things. Okay, so it determines, normally the determination happens by applying various things. Likewise, we have discussed the SISMA, CD, SISMA, CA, all those approaches. Okay, so it determines which device can send and when it can send the data at any instance of time. Okay, so this entire thing categorically, if you ask, so it is divided into two parts, that is enquire, that is ENQ, and the acknowledgement, that is ACK. Okay, so enquire and acknowledgement. When is enquire is required to be sent? Am I audible to all? One or two participants are saying that disturbance. Am I audible? Please write to chat box.
But your voice is breaking in between.
In between, voice is breaking. Okay, so I'm on. 1 second. Let me just. It might be because of this. Okay, so now let's see. All right, so if any disturbance again comes, then just please let me know. So yeah, the screen is visible. Screen is visible. Hello. Hello. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so we are good to go then. Okay, so I'll proceed. Thank you very much. Yeah. So entire thing divides up into inquiry and the acknowledgement. So when we are saying the acknowledgement, when you are saying the acknowledgement, it means whoever is receiving the data, he is going to send an acknowledgement by saying that the last packet or last bit of data I have received. Okay, so end oblique acknowledgement stands for, as we have already discussed, that is inquiry or acknowledgement, and it is used when there is no wrong receiver available on the link. Means it's a peer to peer and you are connected and the link has been established between the two correct people, means sender and a receiver, and which is having a dedicated path, means end-to-end connectivity is ensured. And also what you require to ensure is that two devices are capable of receiving the transmission in is the intended one. Intended receiver, when we are saying, it means I am intended to receive the packets, the incoming packets which are coming to me, means end to end connection is required to be ensured. Okay, so if you are talking about the inquiry and acknowledgement, so these are very essential point. And next part is your flow control. So when you are talking about flow control, so two of the methods that you will definitely talk about, that is your stop and wait and the sliding window. Okay, so when you are saying stop and wait, so we'll come to this pole after the flow control. Okay, so when you are saying flow control, so two methods have been developed for to control or to manage the flow, to avoid the problem or to avoid the issue with fast sender slow receiver. Okay, so if I am sending the data very fast and receiver is not that much of capable of receiving the data, then loss of data might occur. Okay, so that is the reason, major thing that is written here, which is like how much data should be sent at an instance of time. Okay, so that is the flow control. So that is the reason stop and wait protocol. So it's a method. So in the stop and wait method, the sender waits for an acknowledgement after every frame is sent. Okay, so whenever it will send it will send a frame, it will wait till acknowledgement is received, and then only next frame will be sent. Okay, and in another way you can say that this process of alternatively sending and waiting of a frame continues until the sender transmits the end of transmission frame. Okay, so till your frames are delivered to the destination, and last bit, as soon as it will send EOT, that is end of transmission frame, then in that case till that time it will keep on sending the acknowledgements. Okay, after receiving every frame. So what is the advantage? So advantages, if we talk about stop and wait, so stop and wait method is simple as each frame is checked and acknowledged before the next frame is sent. So whenever you receive a frame, this frame will be checked. Okay, checked for its consistency and checked for its error freeness. Okay, and acknowledged before the next frame is sent. Okay, but if you talk about the disadvantages of stop and wait, so stop and wait, it is the most inefficient technique to use, as each frame must travel across all the way to the receiver and an acknowledgement travels all the way before the next frame is sent. Okay, so can you please put your mic on mute, Chatrali madam? Yeah. Uh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, so disadvantages. So if you are saying disadvantages of stop and wait, so stop and wait technique, which is very inefficient to use, as each frame must travel across all the way to the receiver, and the acknowledgement is required to travel all the way back before the next frame is sent. Okay, so yeah, so in So when you are saying, yeah, please mute your audios. Hello. Yeah. Okay. So disadvantages of stop and wait. So stop and wait technique is inefficient. So it is inefficient because every time you have to wait till your acknowledgement is received. Okay, so unless and until acknowledgement is delivered, you will not be able to send the next frame. Okay, next one is your sliding window. So when you talk about sliding window protocol, so it is a method of flowing in which a sender can transmit several frames before getting an acknowledgement. So whatever designated time is assigned to each and every sender in order to send the data or send the packets or send the frames across, send the frame across. Okay, so it is a method of flow control in which a sender can transmit several frames before getting an acknowledgement. Okay, so in sliding window control, multiple frames can be sent one after the another, due to which capacity of communication channel can be utilized efficiently. So here what is required to understand is the capacity of communication channel when you are talking about. So 1500 bytes is the maximum size of one frame which can be sent at any instance of time. Okay, so if you use this sliding window protocol, we will be able to assign the size of block at any instance of time which is required to be sent, but keeping one thing into consideration, that the maximum size is not going to exceed the MTU, that is maximum transfer unit. All right, so a single acknowledgement and multiple frames. All right, so one time would be assigned to me, and during that sliding window protocol, using that window, I am going to send all my frames, and as the receiver is going to send only one acknowledgement for multiple frames. So it is very advantageous than your stop and wait protocol, where each and every frame is going to send the acknowledgement. All right, now next part, when you when you talk about the error control mechanisms, error control in the data link. So when you are saying error control, so error control is nothing but is your technique of error detection and retransmission. So two parts are there, that is your stop and wait ARQ. All right, stop and wait ARQ, which is a technique used to retransmit the data in case of damaged or lost frame. Okay, so this technique works on the principle that the sender will not transmit the next frame until it receives the acknowledgement of the last transmitted frame. Okay, and if you talk about the features when we say stop and wait ARQ, okay, so the sending device keeps a copy. Okay, every time whenever a frame will be sent, your device, the sender, is going to maintain a copy of last transmitted frame till he gets the acknowledgement back. Okay, so keeping a copy, so what is the advantage? So keeping a copy will allow the sender to retransmit the data if the frame is not received correctly. Okay, so if there is a loss of any of the information, loss of data in between, so in that case um, your frame can be retransmitted. Okay, so second most important point, that is the both the data frames and the acknowledgement frames are numbered in alternative, that is one is 0, the next one would be 1. Okay, so that they can be identified individually in the case of this stop and wait ARQ. All right, and if an error occurs in the last transmitted frame, then the receiver sends the NAC frame, that is negative acknowledgement. All right, negative acknowledgement in case of any of the error, okay, which is not numbered. All right, so if it receives any blank in between, so it will send that negative acknowledgement on receiving. Okay, so on receiving the NAC frame, what it will do, what the sender will do, sender will retransmit the data. Okay, so another thing, the most important aspect, it has to go with the timer. Okay, so the timer means from sender to receiver, a specific time is will be assigned. During that time, entire data has to be transmitted from sender to the receiver, and at the same point of time the receiver should be sending the acknowledgement. Okay, so it works with a timer. So if the acknowledgement is not received within the allotted time, then the sender assumes that the frame is lost, and during the transmission, so it has to be retransmitted again. Okay, so there are multiple possibilities. So two possibilities. Possibility number one, that is the case of your damaged frame. So when the receiver receives a damaged frame, that is the frame contains an error, then it returns the NAC frame. All right, and in the case of lost frame, so sender is equipped with the timer and starts when the frame is transmitted. Okay, next is very important aspect again with respect to your sliding window ARQ. So that is, your sliding window ARQ is a technique used for continuous transmission error control. Okay, so if you talk about the features, so in this case, what will happen? The sender keeps the copies of all transmitted frame, in this case also, until they have been acknowledged. So till I receive the acknowledgement, I am going to maintain the copy of all the frames which I will be sending across the network or sending to the receiver. Okay, so suppose frame 0 is lost through 4 have been transmitted. Okay, so if I'm saying I'm sending 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, so total 5 frames if I have been sending. So the last acknowledged frame, if it is 2, okay, so sender has to keep the copies of frames 3 and 4 until they receive it correctly in a correct order. Okay, so if it is not received, then the negative acknowledgement will be sent. Okay, so two protocols when we are saying, again this sliding window ARQ, it will maintain go back n and selective reject. Okay, so when you are saying selective reject and when you are saying the go back n approach, okay, so go back n means you, whichever frame is lost, you are going to transmit that particular frame only. So in the go back and ARQ protocol, if one frame is lost or damaged, then it retransmits all the frames, after which it does not receive the positive acknowledgement. That is the negative. If it is receiving the NAC acknowledgement at the frame number 2, then all subsequent frames would be sent back. That is frame number 2, 3 and 4 in the case of 0 to 4. All right, so next, if we talk about the network layer protocols, so the most interesting protocol in this case is your ARP. All right. So two of the methods which will be which we have already discussed, we have initiated rather, that is your ARP and RARP. So when you are saying ARP, that is your address resolution protocol, means layer 2 to layer 3. Okay, so where it is used to associate an IP address with a MAC address. So when you say IP address, remember it is a logical address, and when you are saying MAC address, MAC is media access control address. Okay, so MAC address is nothing but is your physical address, which is a fixed address. Okay, what can be changed is your logical addressing. Okay, all right, so it is used to associate an IP address with the MAC address. So each device on the network which has the capability to send the data across the network will be recognized by the MAC address which is imprinted on your NIC. Okay, so NIC is your network interface card. Okay, so therefore we can say that devices need the MAC address for communication on a local area network. Okay, all right, so when MAC addresses can be changed easily, okay, MAC address can be changed easily. No, for example, if the NIC of a particular machine fails, then and then only you are going to change the MAC address. Okay, because your NIC is, you have to require, yeah, I mean you are required to change the NIC, that is your network interface card. Okay, so unless and until your network interface card is going to get changed, your MAC address or physical address is not going to get changed. But in the case of IP address, yes, as and when required, you can change the IP address. Okay, what we have understood earlier also from the earlier sessions, that there are multiple classes which I had already said yesterday: class A, class B, class C, class D, class E. So there are 5 classes, out of which most commonly used classes are class A, B, and C. Okay, rest of the classes are being assigned for future use. Okay, so coming back to your ARP, so how it works? So if a host wants to know the physical address of another host on the network, then it sends an ARP query packet. Okay, so ARP request will be sent. Okay, that includes the IP address and broadcasted over the network. Okay, so once it is broadcasted over the network, okay, so if your host wants to understand that who will be the intended receiver, okay, so another host on the network, then it sends the ARP request that includes the IP address and broadcast it over the network. Okay, so every host who are connected over this network is going to receive that particular ARP packet. Okay, but only the intended recipient recognize the particular IP address and sends back the physical address. All right, in the case of ARP query. Okay, so the host who will be holding your datagram, okay, who will be holding the datagram, adds the physical address to the cache memory and the datagram header, then sends it back to the sender in the form of response. Okay, so if it is saying that, okay, I am looking for the physical address of a node whose IP address is 141.23.56.23. Okay, so this is a router or a host, this will broadcast. Okay, so that who is holding this particular physical address. Okay, this whose IP is 141.23.56.23. So now the physical address, whoever is holding, is going to respond back by saying that, okay, I am holding a particular MAC address, this particular MAC address. Okay, so the mapping is happening. All right, so IP has been sent, MAC is received. Okay, and the connection gets established. Okay, so if in any of the case, if the cache is empty, so in that case your device will broadcast the message to the entire network asking each device for a matching MAC address. Okay, so once the device that has matching IP address will then respond back to the sender with its MAC address, and once the MAC address is received by the device, then the communication can take place between two of the devices. Okay, so this will identify this guy, and it is the packets will be sent across. All right, so there are two types of entries which we should understand in the case of ARP. One is dynamic entry and another one is static entry. So two ARP entries always present. Okay, so it is an entry. If I am talking about the dynamic entry, which is an entry which is created automatically when the sender broadcasts its message to the entire network. Okay, so dynamic entries are not permanent and they are removed and flushed periodically. Okay, and but when you talk about the static entry where someone manually enters the IP to MAC address association by using the ARP command. Okay, so this is a fixed addressing. So static and dynamic entries which will be made. Okay, next the RARP, that is your reverse address resolution protocol. So in this case, if a host wants to know its IP address, then it broadcasts the RARP query packet that contains the physical address to the entire network. Okay, so if I don't know the IP address, so I will broadcast my physical address. Okay, so RARP server RARP server on the network recognizes the RARP packet and responds back with the host IP address. Okay, so the protocol which will be used in this case is known as your RARP, that is reverse address resolution protocol, and the message format of the RARP protocol will be similar to your ARP. Okay, so like ARP frame, RARP frame is also sent from one machine to another, okay, in encapsulation form. Okay, that is in the data portion of a particular frame. Okay, next, which we have discussed yesterday. All right, we have initiated rather. So when we are saying ICMP, so ICMP stands for the Internet Control Message Protocol. Okay, so when we are saying Internet Message Control Protocol, then in that case, the most popular ICMP message is your ping message. Okay, ping command rather, or a utility command. Okay, so ICMP stands for Internet Control Message Protocol. So the ICMP is a network layer protocol. Okay, network layer protocol used by hosts and routers to send the notifications of the IP datagram problems back to the sender. Okay, back to the sender. Okay, and ICMP uses the echo test oblique reply to check whether the destination is reachable or not. Okay, so whether I am able to receive or establish the connection, or I am not able to establish the connection using the ICMP ping, I'll be able to identify. Okay, so ICMP, but the advantage if you are talking about, so ICMP handles both control and error messages, but it maintains the function, but its main function if you are talking about is to report the error but not to correct them. So it will only report the error, no correction it will do. Okay, so an IP datagram which will be sent across in this case, that is this, that contains your IP header of 20 bytes and along with the ICMP message total size. Okay, so an IP datagram contains the address of both source and destination, but it does not know the address of the previous router through which it has been passed. Okay, so it doesn't do any time stamping in this case, due to which your ICMP can only send the message to the source but not to the immediate routers. Okay, so because it is nothing to do with the route identification and all. Right? For that you have traceroute, which is again another command. Okay, so ICMP messages are transmitted with the IP datagrams. All right. So when you are saying format, so 8-bit type, which is the first field of the format, so that specifies the type of the message, which type of the message it is. Second field, again it is going to be 8-bit code, which specifies the reason for a particular message which is sent. Okay, and the third one, that is 16-bit checksum. Okay, that is again it will find, okay, that covers the entire ICMP message. Okay, now when we talk about the ICMP, so there are 5 different types of error messages, the 5 different types of error reportings that can happen or that might happen. That is ICMP protocol reports the error messages to the sender. So 5 types of reporting, that is destination unreachable, source quench, time exceeded, parameter problems, and redirection. Okay, so if you talk about destination unreachable, so this message, when and where this message will be sent. So this message of destination unreachable is sent from receiver to the sender when destination cannot be reached or packet is discarded when the destination is not reachable. Okay, second one is your source quench. So when you are saying source quench, so the purpose of source quench message is your congestion control. Okay, so to avoid the congestion control, or to understand that where and how the congestion control has happened, it will respond with source quench message. Okay, so this message is sent from the congested router to the source host to reduce the transmission rate. Okay, so whenever a router sees that, in a complex network I'm talking about, okay, so whenever a router sees that the route is getting congested, it is going to send the it is going to send a source quench message. Okay, that there is a congestion which has happened uh, in the route. Okay, and what a sender will do, it will reduce the transmission rate from that particular route. Okay, and next one is time exceeded. So time exceeded, we had seen yesterday, that is your TTL, which is known as your time to leave. So it is a parameter that defines how long a packet should leave before it would be discarded, means how long the packet should exist over the network. Okay, okay, next one. Next is your IGMP. If you say IGMP, that is your Internet Group Message Protocol. Okay, so intentionally I have kept this slide a bit blank. Okay, so when you see this IGMP, so this protocol basically handles two types of communication. First one is unicast message, and second one is multicast message. Okay, so when you are saying a unicast type of communication, so that happens between one sender and one receiver. Okay, so what how the interaction is happening in a peer-to-peer or one-to-one communication. Okay, but when you are saying multicasting, so sometimes if you want to send your same message to large number of receiver simultaneously, so what you will do, you are going to say, okay, say hi to so many people or a group of people. So you will use the multicast communication. Okay, so that is your one-to-many communication. Okay, so the IGMP protocol is used by host and the router to support. Hello. Am I audible?
So you are audible.
Yeah, I'm audible, right? Yeah, one second, because it seems that my laptop got hanged. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we will go forward with the sessions and later we'll take it up. Yeah. So when you are saying the IGMP, so unicast and multicast, two types of messages can be handled. So when you are saying IGMP protocol, so which is used by the host and the router to support the multicasting. Okay, and it is used by the host and the router to identify the host in a LAN, in a particular LAN, in a particular group rather. Okay, so next most important aspect, if you talk about the format, so format will contain three types, that is your maximum response. Okay, maximum response time. Next is checksum. Okay, definitely the checksum will always be there. And third one is going to be group address, that is for membership query. Okay, so if I'm a group of particular particular group, then I would be able to see or send and receive the message. Okay, so if I'm saying that IGMP where it can be used, so you can see in between this particular internet, that is your wide area multicast routing, which is happening, right? So here this is the most classical example of your IGMP. Okay, where a group of sender and receivers are communicating with each other. Okay, so if you talk about the DNS, that is an application layer protocol which defines the application. Okay, so this is an application layer protocol that defines how the application process running on different systems passes the message to each other. Okay, so this how when and where you are supposed to transfer, or you are supposed to hit to get your response back. All right, so DNS stands for your domain name system. This is nothing but this works in a form of your directory services, which provides a mapping between a name of a host, like we had seen yesterday, cisco.com, name of a host on a network with the numerical address. Numerical address means your IP address. Okay, that is your logical address. All right. So the mapping happens between the host on a network and the numeric address which is assigned to a particular host. Okay, so it is required for functioning of the internet. Each node in a tree has a domain name and a full domain name is a sequence of symbols that is specified by dots. We will see that. Okay, so DNS is a service that translates the domain name into IP address. Okay, so because if I ask you to for example map the google.com, which is very easy to remember. Okay, so if I ask you that, okay, you remember 192.168.129.36. Okay, so when I'm saying this, it would be possibly difficult to remember that this particular IP address belongs to google.com, rather than human mind can remember the words very easily. Okay, so all right, so now if you talk about DNS, so DNS basically divided up into different parts. Number one is your generic domain. So when you are saying generic domain, so it defines the registered host according to their generic behavior. All right, so if you see in this table, okay, if you see that .aero, okay, instead of .com, aero is for your airlines and aerospace companies. Biz, I'm saying the businesses or firms which we are every day we come across, that is your .com. It is the commercial organizations. Okay, edu, if you say, these are the most generic things which are used. Okay, edu, that is your educational institution. Gov, government institution. Info is your information service providers. So likewise, okay, so .net, that is your network support centers. .org, that is your non-profit organizations. Okay, so likewise. Okay, so these all are your generic names which is registered with the host according to their behavior. All right, and each node in this particular table defines the domain name, which is an index to the DNS database. So the reverse mapping happens to the DNS. Okay, DNS will be your root under which you will be able to will be able to see, will be able to get the generic addressing. All right, next one, if you talk about the country domain, second one. Okay, country domain, like we see google.co.in. Okay, so the format of country domain is similar to your generic domain, but it uses 2-character country abbreviation. For example, in the case of United States, you see .us. In the case of India, you see .in. Okay, in the case of Australia, you see .au. In the case of Canada, you see .ca. Okay, so the country domains, these are the country domains which is hosted within a particular country, and the registrar, the domain registrar, belongs to that particular country only. Okay, All right. And the third category which we talk about, that is your inverse domain. So when we are saying inverse domain, that is used for mapping an address to a name when the server has received the request from the client and the server contains the files of only authorized clients to determine whether the client is on authorized list or not. Okay, so that is you are mapping your address with a name. Okay, so whenever your server receives the request from the client and the server contains the files of only authorized clients to determine whether the client is on the authorized list or not, so it will send a query to your DNS server and ask for mapping an address to the name. That is what is your inverse mapping. Okay, that whether I'm allowed to send the data or allowed to send the request or not. If I'm saying the working of DNS, so the classical example is your client server network communication protocol. Okay, so it is a client server communication network protocol. Okay, so DNS client sends the request to the server while DNS server sends the responses back to the client. Okay, all right. So whenever your client request contains a name which is converted into an IP address known as forward DNS lookup, while the request containing an IP address which is converted to a name will be known as your reverse DNS lookup. It means at one form I'm saying that I'll be sending the IP address to see that who will be having or which name is mapped with a particular IP. All right. And vice versa, I will say google.com to understand that who, if there is a website like whois.is, this website basically maintains the complete list of who holds which domain, okay, information. So there if you type the domain address or google.com, for example, if you go there, you will be able to see the address to whom it is registered. Okay, next is your FTP, sorry. So FTP, with if I'm saying FTP stands for your file transfer protocol. Okay, so it is a standard internet protocol provided by TCP/IP used for transmitting the file from one host to another host. Now, if you are asking, if you talk about the FTP, basically it works through two different ports. Okay, that is port number 21 and port number 22. Okay, so now the requirement is that why there are two ports which is required to send the data across, because one port is required to maintain the connection and second port will be used to send the data across. Okay, so it is mainly used for transferring the web page files from their creator to the computer that acts as a server for other computers on the internet. Okay, so it is also used for downloading the files to computers from other servers. Okay, so if you see a user, so what user is going to see? User is going to see the user interface over it through his FTP application, where he will be assigned with two of the ports, that is your control ports, that is your control process, and the data transfer process. So if you are saying the control process, it is completely the peer-to-peer process, so which will be used for controlling the connection, and second one will take care of your data connection, that is part of data which will be received, okay, by the client from a particular server. Okay, so if you talk about the FTP, why it came into existence. Okay, so it provides the sharing of file. It is used to encourage the use of remote computers. It transfers the data more reliably and efficiently. And if you are saying why FTP, so although file transferring or transferring of the files from one system to another is very simple and straightforward, but sometimes it can cause problems. Okay, because your end-to-end is not secured or ensured that whom you are uploading your files, your data. So for example, if I'm saying two systems may have different file conventions, okay, so two systems may have different ways to represent the text and data also. Okay, third part, if I'm saying two systems can have different directory structures, okay, so in that case the best protocol would be your FTP. Okay, so where all three problems, okay, of your conventions, your representation and your data structures will be taken care of. Okay, so the mechanism is this diagram which is explained here. Okay, so two ports it will use, port number 21 and port number 22. Okay, and if you talk about the advantages, so advantages would be your speed, it is more efficient, it is secure, and back and forth movement is very possible and very easy. Okay, next is your am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, so if I'm talking about the next aspect, that is your telnet. So telnet is nothing but is your terminal network. Okay, so the main task of the internet is to provide the services to the users. Okay, so now after seeing these many protocols, these are the most basic protocol. In addition to that, you are having so many other protocols which are available at every layer. Okay, and these protocols are used as per the requirement. But when it comes to the telnet, so the main task of the internet is to provide the services. Okay, so if you take an example where user wants to run different application programs at the remote site and transfer a result to the local site, then you require a telnet. Okay, that is your terminal network. Okay, so where it can be used, it requires a client server program such as your FTP and SMTP. Definitely you require these both the protocols. Okay, so but this would not allow you to create a specific program for each demand. You cannot do it. You cannot create a separate FTP connection, you cannot create a separate SMTP connection every time as per the demand. Okay, so to better to understand that, you submit everything, do a telnet and get the response. Okay, so the better solution is to provide a general client server program that let the user access any application program on a remote control or a remote computer. Okay, we will do an exercise on this. uh, let's see how fast we can go. Okay, and by using this terminal network, you can do that. You can connect to a remote computer. Okay, you submit your task. Okay, you access it. Okay, and then you get your results back. So therefore, a program that allows a user to log on to a remote computer, so this is a method to do it. Okay, so what happens in this case, your application program is going to hit through your operating system which is having terminal driver installed to a terminal which is at your remote uh, locality. Okay, so when you want to do that, so what happens, so when a user logs on to the local computer, then it is known as your local login. Okay, that is at the client level. So when the workstation running your terminal emulator, the keystrokes entered by the users are accepted, means here it is accepted at this part, that is your local computer character set. Okay, which is written there. All right, and then what happens next, so the terminal driver then passes each of these characters to the of operating system, which in turn invokes the desired application program. So I will simply send a request, I'll connect to a remote server by using the telnet to get a desired application. And how it is happening, so remote computer will have, doesn't matter which kind of character set it is having. Okay, so you, since you are connecting it virtually, so you will be able to run it. Okay, So how the remote login happens normally at the local site. If I'm saying local site, so the user sends the keystrokes to the terminal driver. The characters are then sent to the telnet client, and the telnet client, which in turn transforms the characters to a universal character set as the network virtual terminal, that is your NVT character set, and this NVT character set will take care of rest of the functionalities with the help of your local TCP IP stack, which we had seen yesterday. Okay, and another most important aspect, so this will basically your NVT means this intermediary part which is running at your internet. This character set is responsible. Okay, so the NVT, it provides an interface that defines how the data and commands are sent across the network. So this is basically your parent who will take care of how the connection and how the data will be sent across the network in the form of commands. Okay, all right. Next is your SMTP. Now this is again a very important part which everyone uses. All right. So SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. This is nothing but your SMTP client which is installed at the user's end. Okay, and SMTP server who controls in turn all of the clients which are available. Okay, so SMTP is a set of communication guidelines that allows software to transmit an electronic mail over the internet, which is a simple mail transfer protocol. So in another words, if you want to say, so it is a program that is used for sending messages to other computer based user based on the email addresses. Okay, so it provides a mail exchange between the users on the same or different computers, and it also supports, number one, it can send a single message to one or more recipient. Sending message which can include is your voice, video, text or graphics, and it can also send the messages on a network outside the internet. Okay, so components, if you ask me what are the components, so these are the components: your SMTP client, your internet, and your server. Okay, so if you talk about the client, okay, so first the SMTP client and the SMTP server, okay, has to be broke into two components, that is your user agent and mail transfer agent, MTA. That is MTA is mail transfer agent. Okay, so when you talk about the user agent, so the what is the role of user agent? So your user agent prepares the message, creates an envelope, and then puts the message inside that particular envelope. Okay, and then your MTA transfers this mail across the internet, that is this case. All right, and then across the internet, and then your SMTP will allow a more complex system by adding a relaying system. Okay, so here if you look at this diagram, so what is happening, your MTA client through the user agent, it is going to prepare a message, then an envelope will be created, then puts that particular message inside the envelope, write the address. Okay, address is nothing but is your email address, and send it across. So it will travel to the server, and this unenveloping and then message taking the message out of that over the server, and from here the user is going to read that particular message. Okay, so if you talk about the another part, that is relaying system without a TCP IP mechanism, so TCP IP protocol can also be used to send the email to the users, and this is achieved by use of your mail gateway. Okay, all right. for example, you are having a private email facility. Okay, so the mail gateway is a relay MTA that can be used to receive an email. Okay. So if you talk about the working of SMTP, so I can say the most important number one, your composition of mail will happen. So how it happens? So a user sends an email by composing an electronic mail using your mail user agent, that is your MUA. So user agent, that is this. Okay, so you'll write that mail. So mail user agent is a program which is used to send and receive the email. The message contains two parts, that is your body and the header. And when you say the body, so it is the main part of the message, while the header includes information such as the sender and recipient address. Okay, post that the header also includes the descriptive information such as the subject of the message, and in any of the case the message body is like a letter and the header is like your envelope, okay, which contains the recipient's address. That is the first part, that is your composition of mail which a user is doing at UA, okay, with the help of UA. So post that the submission of mail is going to happen. Okay, so after composing an email, the mail client, okay, mail client then submits the completed email to the SMTP server by using the SMTP on TCP port. Okay, TCP port 25 port is used for SMTP. All right, and last step, last but one. Okay, so delivery of mail. So how the delivery of mail is going to happen? Delivery of mail is going to happen by email address which is written. Okay, so your email address contains two parts, that is username of the recipient and the domain name. For example, xyz@google.com. Here xyz is the address and google.com is your domain. Okay, all right, so user of the recipient and the domain name. Okay, so if the domain name of the recipient's email address is different from the sender's domain name, then MSA will send the mail to the MTA, that is this. MSA will send it to your MTA, and this MTA, that is your mail transfer agent, okay, then MSA will send the mail to the MTA, and to relay the particular email, the MTA will find the target domain. This MTA will contain the information about all target domains, that how your message should travel. Okay, so it checks the MX record, okay, from the DNS to obtain the target domain. Okay, and the MX record contains the domain name and the IP address of the recipient. Once the record is located, your MTA is going to connect to the exchange server to relay the message. Okay, so this is how your message gets delivered. Here two different scenarios are there. First scenario is a Gmail domain user or a Google domain user is sending a message to same domain which exists, means the XYZ at gmail.com is sending pqr at gmail.com, a message to pqr at gmail.com. This is that scenario. Okay, if you are talking about a Gmail user wants to send a message to Yahoo user, then your MTA will comes into the picture. Okay, that is your mail transfer agent and MSA. Okay, next is your SNMP. Okay, so when you talk about SNMP, SNMP is nothing but your network management protocol. Now, why this thing comes into the picture, network management protocol? Okay, so in a normal system, you can think of, you will be having the fixed number of computers, fixed number of your switches, fixed number of network equipments. Okay, now you think about a complex scenario where we'll be having hundreds of thousands of hosts, the nodes, okay, along with hundreds of switches to which your nodes are connected, and then you want to understand that what each and every load is doing. Okay, so to manage that, this particular protocol came into the picture. So this protocol basically goes by the framework. So it is used for managing devices over the internet. It provides a set of operations for monitoring and managing the internet. So two components are there. One is manager and second one is agent. So the manager, what is a manager? So the manager is a host who controls and monitors a set of agents such as routers. Okay. So it is an application layer protocol in which a few manager stations can handle set of agents. Okay. So the protocol, this particular SNMP protocol is designed at the application level, which can monitor the devices made by different manufacturers and installed on different physical networks. So here there is no restriction that you use only one particular model switch or one particular vendor's equipment. It's not like that. Once SNMP is installed and configured, you will be able to manage any of the equipment of any of the manufacturer. Okay, so here the next, so this will give you the leverage over your heterogeneous network that is made of different LANs and WANs which are connected by your routers and gateways. Okay, so next is your manager, managers and agent. Okay, so the manager is a host that runs the SNMP client program, while the agent is a router that runs the SNMP server program. Okay, so management of the internet, which can be achieved through simple interaction between the managers and the agents. And agent is used to keep the information in the database, while the manager is used to access the values in the database. Okay, so for example, if you talk about a router that can store the appropriate variable such as number of packets received and forwarded, while the manager can compare these variables to determine whether the router is congested or not. So you can set, or you can say that a particular router should be able to send these many packets only at any instance of time. All these things can be done. Okay, whereas if you talk about the agent's perspective, so agents will also be able to contribute to the management process. It's not only the responsibility of the manager. So a server program on the agent checks for the environment. If something goes wrong, the agent sends a warning message to the manager. Okay. So next one, if you talk about, that is your management with SNMP, that comes with three basics. Number one is manager checks the agent by requesting the information that reflects the behavior of a agent. Okay. The manager also forces the agent to perform a certain function by resetting values in the agent database. Okay. And third basic idea, that is your an agent also contributes to the management process by warning the manager regarding the unusual conditions. Okay, so next one is your HTTP, which we use every day while accessing the internet. So it is nothing but your hypertext transfer protocol. It is a protocol that is used to access the data on the World Wide Web. The HTTP protocol can be used to transfer the data in the form of plain text, hypertext, audio, video, and so on. Okay, so this protocol, if you talk about, the also known as your hypertext transfer protocol, because why it is called that? Because it's because of its efficiency that allows us to use in a hypertext environment where there are rapid jumps from one document to another document. Okay, so that is one very nice example of it. Okay, so HTTP is similar, it works similar to your FTP, no doubt about it. Okay, so as it also transfers the files from one host to another host, but your HTTP, it is more simpler than FTP. Why? Because HTTP uses one connection, that is no control connection to transfer the file. Whereas in case of FTP, you should have the control over the connection at number one. Then and then only you will be able to send the data. Okay. And second one, the most important aspect, you can say that it is used to carry the data in the form of MIME. Okay, multi-purpose internet mail extension protocol. This is another format, MIME type. Okay, right. So and HTTP, if you are talking about, so it is similar to your SMTP as the data is transferred between the client and server. Okay, and the HTTP differs from the SMTP in the way the messages are sent from the client to the server and from the server to the client. Okay, and if you talk about the SMTP over HTTP, okay, so SMTP messages are stored and forwarded while HTTP messages are delivered immediately. Okay, so that is the reason it comes with these three features, that is your connectionless protocol, media independent and stateless. So when you are saying connectionless protocol, so HTTP is a connectionless protocol. HTTP client initiates a request and waits for a response from the server. Okay, so when the server receives the request, the server processes the request and sends back the response to the HTTP client, after which your client disconnects the connection. Okay, so that is the reason it is the connectionless protocol. So once the data is received, okay, so the disconnection will happen. Okay, as soon as it will send, it will break the connection. Okay, so the connection between the client and server exists only during the current request and response time only. Okay, second one, if you are saying that it is a media independent, so if you are saying it is a media independent, then your HTTP protocol, it is a media independent because the data can be sent as long as both the clients and server know how to handle the data content. Okay. So it is required for both client and server to specify the content type in MIME type header. Okay. And third feature, that is your stateless. Okay, so HTTP is a stateless protocol, as we all are aware, most of us are aware, as both the client and server know each other only during the current request. Okay, so due to this nature of the protocol, both the client and server do not retain the information between various requests of the web pages. Okay, and if you talk about this, so when you are when you send a request, okay, so server is simply the server, in essence it is stateless. So you will send a request, you will get a response, and that's all. Okay, no state will be maintained. Okay, only current state is required to be maintained. So messages in the form of request message and response. All right. Okay, then is your URL. So this is the most interesting part. Okay, so client wants to send, okay, client wants to access the document in an internet, needs an address, okay, needs an address, and to facilitate the access of documents, the HTTP uses the concept of URL. Okay, that is your uniform resource locator. Now when you are saying uniform resource locator, so if you see over this diagram, so basically how you are going to call your page or home page, or how you are going to place the request, that is your method. Okay, the host, that is your google.com or google.com or yahoo.com or any of the domain which you are going to will be hosting your page, and then through which port, okay, like port number 80 is your HTTP protocol which it works. Okay, likewise you need to write the port number and the path. If you look towards this entire diagram, it looks like your Windows directory structure. Okay, you will have the C drive, then a particular directory, then inside that directory again you will be able to see the directory, and then your file. Okay, so how you are going to connect, so how to reach to the a particular file, that is your path. Okay, so the URL is standard way of specifying any kind of information over the internet. Okay, so four parts are there: method, host computer, port, and the path. So if you say method, so the method is a protocol used to retrieve the document from the server, for example your HTTP. Host, the host is a computer where the information is stored, and the computer is given an alias name. Okay, all right. So what is the example of this? Your web pages are mainly stored in the computer, and computers are given an alias name that begin with the characters www, that is your World Wide Web. Okay, and but if you say, you will be able to access. See, there is a two methods. First one is you write your method, how you are retrieving, that is your HTTP colon 2 / and then you say that google.com. Okay, still you will be able to see the page. Okay, in the next instance of time, just do this, your method colon 2 / and then you write www.google.com. In this case also you are going to get the same page, right? So how it is happening, this is all because of your host field only, which is mapped with your World Wide Web. Okay, and this field is not mandatory. Okay, so second aspect, if you talk about the port, so the URL can also contain the port number of the server, but it is an optional field. If you want, you can have. If you don't want, still it is okay. So if the port number is included, then it must come between the host and the path. Okay, so it should come between the host and the path. Okay, so this is basically the syntax, what you can say. Okay, so if the port number is included, then it must come between host and the path, and it should be separated by the colon. Okay, and path similar to your Windows path, where in Windows you use /, here you use the /. Okay, so this is what is about the protocols which is required to run your internet connection. Okay, all right. So now there is one thing which I definitely would like to show you, a small video. Okay, so we will discuss that once. Yeah, yeah, please hang on for just a minute. I'll be pulling up that particular video. Okay, just let me see whether I'll be able to or not. Yeah. So yeah, I'll be pulling up that video. It is going, just just hang on. Yeah. Yeah. So there is a small video of around 10 minutes. Okay. So now I'll share that. Just okay. So now, are you able to see the screen? Okay, great. So I'm playing this. Just take a look of. Before starting, I would like to tell you one thing, that this video basically speaks about like how your basic network, the interface between your network and your internet, from internet to sorry, from your basic network to a firewall, from firewall to internet to the different ports where your request or your packets are going to be forwarded. Okay, just take a look. This is nicely prepared by the Ericsson. Yeah. Are you able to hear the voice also? Please respond in the chat box. Voice is not there. Okay. One second. Voice should be visible. One second. Audio should be. Yeah, in any ways, you are going to get this video over the drive also. So those who are not able to hear the voice, they'll be getting this file as well. Okay. So just take a look of this. It's nice.
वडाई सर
हाँ मैडम.
सर आपने स्क्रीन शेयर किया है
हाँ स्क्रीन शेयर किया है ना. One second, I have paused it. मेरे पास एक्चुअली कंट्रोल कुछ भी नहीं है. आई एम नॉट एबल टू क्लिक एनीथिंग.
ओके
स्क्रीन विजिबल हो रहा है क्या वीडियो का? नहीं.
नो 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 स्क्रीन इज नॉट विजिबल
ओके. One second, I will. Can I go out of the meeting and come back again?
नो सर जस्ट वेट just try to reassign you as a presenter.
Yeah. Something is happening here. Have you assigned me? I'm not able to. Yeah. Presenter. Yes. No, madam. Still, I'm not able to. No. Okay, between actually. Just kicked me out. Yes. Yeah, I could get the control back. Just 1 second. Huh? Just hold on. Yeah, so now I'm sharing my entire screen. Okay, so let's see. Uh, are you able to hear the voice? Hello?
No, sir.
Voice, are you able to? Yes. Are you able to hear the voice? No.
No, sir.
Only mine. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. Huh? I don't know why it is not. Okay, anyways, we'll complete this video and so that screen is visible, right? From screen also you'll be able to understand.
Yes, sir. Screen is visible.
Yeah, yeah.
Click here to begin your journey into the net. Now, exactly what happened when you clicked on that link? You started a flow of information. This information travels down into your own personal mailroom, where Mr.
Yeah, we'll be
IT
sharing
packages
the video
labels it,
also, so
and
not to
sends it
worry.
on its way. Each packet is limited in its size. The mailroom must decide how to divide the information and how to package it. Now, the package needs a label containing important information, such as sender's address, receiver's address, and the type of packet it is. as this particular packet is going out onto the internet, it also gets an address for the proxy server, which has a special function, as we'll see later. The packet is now launched onto your local area network, or LAN. This network is used to connect all the local computers, routers, printers, etc. for information exchange within the physical walls of the building. The LAN is a pretty uncontrolled place, and unfortunately, accidents can happen. The highway of the LAN is packed with all types of information. These are IP packets, URL packets, Apple Talk packets. They're going against traffic, as usual. The local router reads the address and, if necessary, lifts the packet onto another network. The router, a symbol of control in a seemingly disorganized world.
So this is a router. Takes care of your packets.
There he is, systematic, uncaring, methodical, conservative, and sometimes not quite up to speed. But at least he is exact, for the most part. As the packets leave the router, they make their way into the corporate internet.
Yes, it is
and head
available.
for the router switch. A bit more efficient than the router switch plays fast and loose with IP packets, deftly routing them along their way. A digital pinball wizard, if you will. As packets arrive at their destination, they're picked up by the network interface, ready to be sent to the next level. In this case, the proxy. The proxy is used by many companies as sort of a middleman in order to lessen the load on their internet connection, and for security reasons as well. As you can see, the packets are all of various sizes, depending upon their content. The proxy opens the packet and looks for the web address, or URL. Depending upon whether the address is acceptable, the packet is sent onto the internet. There are, however, some addresses which do not meet with the approval of the proxy, that is to say, corporate or management guidelines. These are summarily dealt with. We'll have none of that. For those who make it, it's on the road again. Next up, the firewall. The corporate firewall serves two purposes. It prevents some rather nasty things from the internet from coming into the intranet, and it can also prevent sensitive corporate information from being sent out onto the internet. Once through the firewall, a router picks up the packet and places it onto a much narrower road, or bandwidth, as we say. Obviously, the road is not broad enough to take them all. Now you might wonder what happens to all those packets which don't make it along the way. Well, when Mr. IP doesn't receive an acknowledgement that a packet has been received in due time, he simply sends a replacement packet. We are now ready to enter the world of the internet. A spider web of interconnected networks which span our entire globe. Here, routers and switches establish links between networks. Now, the net is an entirely different environment than you'll find within the protected walls of your lab. Out here, it's the Wild West. Plenty of space, plenty of opportunities, plenty of things to explore and places to go. Thanks to very little control and regulation, new ideas find fertile soil to push the envelope of their possibilities. But because of this freedom, certain dangers also lurk. You'll never know when you'll meet the dreaded ping of death. A special version of a normal request ping, which some idiot thought up to mess up unsuspecting hosts. The paths our packets take may be via satellite, telephone lines, wireless, or even transoceanic cable. They don't always take the fastest or shortest routes possible, but they will get there. Eventually. Maybe that's why it's sometimes called the worldwide wait. But when everything is working smoothly, you can circumvent the globe 5 times over at the drop of a hat, literally, and all for the cost of a local call or less. Near the end of our destination, we'll find another firewall.
Now the
Depending upon your
packets are entering to
perspective as a
firewall.
telepacket, the firewall can be a bastion of security or a dreaded adversary. It all depends on which side you're on and what your intentions are. The firewall is designed to let in only those packets that meet its criteria. This firewall is operating on ports 80 and 25. All attempts to enter through other ports are closed for business. Port 25 is used for mail packets, while port 80 is the entrance for packets from the internet to the web server. Inside the firewall, packets are screened more thoroughly. Some packets make it easily through customs, while others look just a bit dubious. Now, the firewall officer is not easily fooled, such as when this ping of death packet tries to disguise itself as a normal ping packet. For those packets lucky enough to make it this far, the journey is almost over. It's just a lineup on the interface to be taken up into the web server. Nowadays, a web server can run on many things, from a mainframe to a webcam to the computer on your desk. Why not your refrigerator? With a proper setup, you can find out if you have the makings for chicken cacciatore or if you have to go shopping. Remember, this is the dawn of the net. Almost anything's possible. One by one, the packets are received, opened, and unpacked. The information they contain, that is, your request for information, is sent onto the web server application. The packet itself is recycled, ready to be used again, and filled with your requested information. At rest and sent out on its way back to you. Back past the firewall, routers, and on through to the internet. Back through your corporate firewall. And onto your interface. Ready to supply your web browser with the information you requested. That is, this film. Pleased with their efforts and trusting in a better world, our trusty data packets ride off blissfully into the sunset of another day. Doing fully, they have served their masters well. Now, isn't that a happy ending?
Yeah. So this was, introduced by Ericsson. They made this video to give the clear understanding of how your application basically works. So yeah, how many? I guess some of you might have tried this, but what I would say is that just complete this second task, okay, which is over Cisco Packet Tracer, and you'll be able to see all the required equipments which are already available in the repository of your Cisco Packet Tracer. So this take this assignment, task number 2, and just try to finish it off, and we'll address all your queries over the weekend, and I'll share a one document. Okay, so one document as a complete list of queries which I'll be receiving today, okay, till today, out of these 3 sessions. So just keep on posting the queries. I'll prepare one single document so that it will be available to all of you. Okay, because if I take the query session now, we can have the query session, question answer session, absolutely no problem, but what will happen is that only interaction will happen, and later on there will not be any documental, there is no reference document. So rather I prefer to go with the document. So whatever queries are there, just send it across. Yesterday I received around 7 to 8 queries. Okay, so I'll prepare one single document and I'll send it across. Okay, so that's all from my side for today's session. Meera madam, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
After,
So
is there any deadline for the assignment submission?
madam, let them complete, because second task is a bit long task, basically around 9 pages. So what I would say is that before the next session, definitely I would like to see the assignments get submitted. Okay, yeah, thank you, thanks a lot to the
Thank
participants.
you, sir.
Yeah. So over to you, Meera madam.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, all. Okay, thank you all. We'll wait here. Now we'll stop here for the today's session. We'll see you soon tomorrow. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hello, Meera ma'am. Chaitrali ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you stop the recording
Yes, ma'am.
and just save the files?